Have you ever had a day where you told yourself, today's the day, I'm finally going to get this done, and then somehow the day disappears? You clean the kitchen. You check your emails. You scroll Instagram for 45 minutes. You watch 3 YouTube videos about productivity, and still, the thing you actually need to do remains untouched. Sound familiar? You're not alone. In fact, you're in very good company. Millions of people, from students to CEOs, deal with this exact pattern every single day. And if you're here watching this video, chances are you've had enough. You're tired of knowing what you need to do, but not doing it. You're frustrated with yourself. You feel stuck, maybe even ashamed. But I want to start this course by telling you something important, something no one ever told me when I was in that place. You're not lazy. You're not weak. And there's nothing wrong with you. What you're experiencing is something very real, very human, and very fixable. It's called procrastination, but not the way most people define it. See, most of us think procrastination is simply putting things off, that it's just poor time management or a lack of discipline, that we're too disorganized, too distracted, or just not motivated enough. And so we beat ourselves up. We try to push through with brute force. We make longer to-do lists. We download productivity apps. We promise ourselves, next time I'll do better. But nothing really changes. And here's why. Procrastination isn't about the task. It's about how the task makes you feel. Let me say that again, because it's the key to everything we'll cover in this course. Procrastination isn't about avoiding work. It's about avoiding uncomfortable emotions. Think about it. We don't usually procrastinate brushing our teeth or grabbing a coffee. Why? Because those actions don't trigger fear, shame, perfectionism, or uncertainty. But writing that report, starting that business, having that conversation, finishing that project, those things come with emotional baggage. They bring up doubt, pressure, self-judgment. So your brain, trying to protect you, goes looking for an escape. Something easier, something safer, something more rewarding right now. That's why we end up doing things that feel productive, like cleaning the desk or researching for hours online, but are actually just a distraction in disguise. Let me share a quick story from my own life. A few years ago, I had this idea for a passion project I was really excited about. I had the tools, the time, and even support from friends. But every time I sat down to start, I would suddenly feel stuck. I'd stare at the screen and my mind would go blank. Or I'd find myself on YouTube watching motivational videos. Ironic, right? What I realized was this: I wasn't avoiding the work. I was avoiding the possibility that it might not be good enough, that I might fail, or worse, that I might succeed and then have to keep delivering. That's when it hit me. Procrastination isn't a time problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. And science backs this up. Studies in neuroscience show that when we're faced with a task that triggers anxiety or uncertainty, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up. This causes us to enter a mild stress response. Our prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thinking and planning, temporarily shuts down. And instead of taking action, we shift to something that provides instant relief, like checking our phones or watching Netflix. So, if you've been blaming yourself for being lazy, stop. Your brain is actually doing what it's designed to do: protect you from perceived danger. The problem is, the danger isn't real. It's just discomfort. And here's the good news. If your brain learned to procrastinate, it can also learn new patterns. That's exactly what this course is about. Over the next few modules, I'll guide you through a process that not only helps you understand why you procrastinate, but gives you tools to change it, one small shift at a time. We're going to rebuild your relationship with motivation, with focus, and most importantly, with yourself. No shame, no guilt, just real strategies that work. Before we wrap up this first video, I want you to do one thing. Think about a task or project you've been putting off for a while. Something important, but not urgent. Something that keeps showing up in your thoughts, but never quite makes it onto your finished list. Now ask yourself, what emotion does that task bring up? Is it fear? Uncertainty? Doubt? Boredom? You don't need to fix anything right now. Just notice it, because awareness is the first step toward change. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into what's actually happening in your brain when you procrastinate. I'll show you how dopamine, avoidance loops, and habit cycles keep you stuck, and how to gently interrupt them. This is not about pushing harder. It's about shifting smarter. And remember, you're not lazy. You're human. And you're capable of more than you think. And maybe now you're thinking, okay, I get it. I'm not lazy. It's emotional. But how do I stop this from happening again? That's a great question. And we'll get to the practical tools very soon. But first, let's zoom out for a second. Procrastination is not just a bad habit. It's a pattern of thinking, a pattern that's been reinforced over years. And what strengthens this pattern is not just the avoidance itself, but the guilt that comes afterward. You know what I mean, right? That feeling at the end of the day when you realize you didn't do what you planned. You feel disappointed, maybe even angry with yourself. You tell yourself, why can't I just be more productive? And the next morning, you start the day with that emotional hangover. Already behind, already stressed. This is the real trap. Not just putting things off, but building an identity around it. You start seeing yourself as the kind of person who never finishes things. That identity becomes your reality, and it's incredibly hard to change when you're stuck in that cycle. But guess what? Identities are stories, and stories can be rewritten. In this course, I'm not just giving you surface-level tricks. I want to help you rewrite your story. Because when you shift how you see yourself from someone who avoids to someone who acts, from someone who feels stuck to someone who takes small, consistent steps, everything changes. You start showing up differently. You feel more in control. You build momentum. And most importantly, you start trusting yourself again. And that trust? That's gold. When you trust yourself, motivation becomes effortless. You stop needing willpower because you've built something stronger, self-belief. So take a breath. Let this sink in. You're not here to become a productivity machine. You're here to feel good in your own skin again, to take back your time, to stop feeling guilty, to finally move forward. This first module is all about understanding. You can't fix what you don't fully see. And now that we've peeled back the curtain on what procrastination really is, we can begin to change it not through pressure, but through awareness and intention. In the next lesson, we're going to break down what's happening in your brain chemically when you avoid something, and how to hack that system to work in your favor. It's going to be eye-opening and practical, so stay with me. You've already taken the hardest step, starting. Let's keep going together. Let's dive into what's really going on inside your brain when you procrastinate. Because once you understand the biology behind your behavior, it becomes so much easier to change it. This isn't just about mindset. It's about neurochemistry and how your brain is wired to avoid discomfort and seek pleasure. At the center of this process is a powerful chemical called dopamine. You've probably heard of it. It's often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter, but that's only part of the story. Dopamine isn't really about pleasure. It's about anticipation, about motivation, about the drive to act. Every time your brain perceives something as rewarding, whether it's a delicious meal, a social interaction, or checking your phone, it releases dopamine. This tells your body, that was good. Let's do more of that. It reinforces behavior. It literally rewires your brain. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you're faced with a task that feels hard, boring, or overwhelming, like writing a report, preparing a tax form, or making a difficult phone call, your brain doesn't get that anticipatory dopamine spike. There's no immediate reward. It feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and your brain says no thanks. Let's find something easier. So instead, it looks for something that will deliver that dopamine hit, something low effort, high reward. That's when you find yourself grabbing your phone, checking social media, watching videos, snacking, or doing literally anything else that feels good right now. And just like that, procrastination becomes a coping mechanism. It's your brain choosing short-term comfort over long-term benefit. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is running on an ancient survival system that prioritizes immediate reward and avoids perceived threats. Let's take a step back and imagine this in real life. You sit down at your desk to start writing a presentation for work. It's due in 2 days, but you want to get ahead. As soon as you open the file, you feel a little anxious. You're not sure where to begin. What if it doesn't turn out well? What if your manager doesn't like it? Your brain detects this emotional discomfort. There's no dopamine in sight, no clear reward, just uncertainty and pressure. Then, suddenly, ping, you get a notification on your phone. It's a message. You check it. Dopamine. Then you see an interesting video on Instagram. You click. More dopamine. Suddenly, 20 minutes have passed, and the presentation is still untouched. That's not a lack of discipline. That's neurochemical logic. And here's the kicker. The more often your brain chooses the dopamine shortcut, the more it reinforces that behavior. It's like a well-worn path in the forest. Every time you walk that trail, it gets more defined. Easier to follow. Harder to ignore. That's how procrastination becomes a habit. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain has learned, over time, that avoidance feels better in the moment. But now that you see the pattern, you can change it. And here's how. The key is to train your brain to associate action, even small, imperfect action, with reward. You want to create dopamine on demand, not by checking your phone, but by celebrating progress. This is where tiny habits come in. When you break down a big task into something so small it feels ridiculously doable, like opening the document or writing just one sentence, you lower the emotional resistance. You lower the threat level. And when you reward yourself for taking that tiny step, your brain gets a little dopamine hit. It says, hey, that wasn't so bad. And that encourages you to take the next step. And the next. Let me share a quick personal example. When I started creating online courses, I used to get overwhelmed just thinking about recording a lesson. I'd open my script, then immediately close it. Too much pressure. Too many unknowns. But when I shifted my approach and said, today, I'm just going to write the title of the lesson and speak the first 2 lines, everything changed. That tiny win felt good. It gave me momentum. It rewired the loop. And over time, the dopamine began to show up for the action, not the avoidance. There's also something called a dopamine feedback loop, and it works like this. The more often you repeat a rewarding action, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. That's why bad habits feel automatic. But here's the exciting part. Good habits can become automatic too. All it takes is repetition, consistency, and this is important, positive emotional reinforcement. If you reward yourself emotionally for making progress, even if it's tiny, you start to enjoy the act of doing. That can be as simple as saying yes, I did it, or checking a box, or listening to a favorite song after a focused work session. These micro-rewards may sound silly, but your brain doesn't care. It just wants the chemical hit. Now, let's talk about another important piece of the puzzle, the brain's pain versus pleasure equation. Your brain is constantly asking, what will this cost me, and what will I gain? If the pain seems bigger than the pleasure, it will avoid. If the pleasure is higher, or if the pain of not doing something increases, it will take action. That's why deadlines can suddenly make us hyperproductive. The pain of doing the task hasn't changed, but the pain of not doing it, like missing a deadline or getting in trouble, has just spiked. But relying on fear-based urgency isn't sustainable. It burns you out. It creates anxiety. What we want is to shift the balance more gently and intentionally by making the task feel lighter and the reward feel closer. This can be done in 3 simple ways. First, by reducing perceived pain. That means simplifying the task, removing pressure, and avoiding perfectionism. You're not trying to win an award. You're just trying to start. Second, by increasing perceived pleasure. That means creating a feel-good environment. Put on music, light a candle, use your favorite notebook. Make the process itself more enjoyable. And third, by moving the reward closer. Don't wait until the whole project is finished to feel good. Celebrate every step, every 10 minutes of focus, every action, no matter how small. The more you do this, the more you start to feel in control. And that feeling, that sense of agency, is more powerful than any productivity hack. So here's what I want you to take away from this lesson. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're operating under the influence of a chemical system that prioritizes short-term reward. But you have the power to guide that system, to train it, to gently shift it toward habits that support your growth, not sabotage it. And it starts with awareness. You've just learned why your brain does what it does, and that alone gives you power. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can work with it instead of fighting it. In the next video, we'll go deeper into why smart, driven people often procrastinate more than others, and how to use your intelligence to your advantage, rather than letting it trip you up. But for now, I want to leave you with a challenge. Pick one task you've been avoiding, and tomorrow, don't commit to finishing it. Just commit to starting the very first step. Open the file, write the title, sketch the outline. That's all. Then immediately give yourself a small reward. A smile, a check mark, a short walk, a song you love. You're not chasing perfection. You're building momentum. You've got this. Let's keep going. Have you ever wondered why some of the most intelligent, creative, and capable people are also the ones who struggle the most with procrastination? It seems counterintuitive, right? You'd think that being smart would make things easier, that having a sharp mind would help you get more done, faster. But in reality, many high achievers, especially those who are thoughtful, detail-oriented, or deeply analytical, end up procrastinating more than others. Why? Let's unpack this together, because once you understand this connection, it will help you stop blaming yourself and start seeing your strengths in a whole new way. Here's the thing. Intelligence is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives you powerful tools like deep thinking, problem solving, and imagination. But on the other hand, it can also become your biggest obstacle because you overthink, overplan, and overcomplicate. Smart people tend to see more possibilities, more risks, and more what-ifs. Before they even start a task, their mind is already 10 steps ahead. They're imagining every outcome, every mistake, every flaw. And that makes starting feel heavy, paralyzing even. You might recognize this in yourself. Maybe you want to launch a new project, but instead of taking the first step, you start researching everything. You compare tools, watch tutorials, read reviews. You spend hours preparing, but deep down, you're stuck in a loop of analysis paralysis. You're not lazy. You're just trying to make the perfect choice, to avoid making a mistake, to avoid wasting time by doing it wrong. This is classic perfectionistic procrastination, and it's incredibly common among intelligent people. Because when you hold yourself to a high standard, starting something imperfect feels risky. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want to waste time. You want it to be great, and that pressure freezes you. And here's another factor. Smart people often have a strong imagination. And that means you're really good at visualizing the ideal outcome, but also at imagining everything that could go wrong. You picture the success, but also the failure, the judgment, the criticism, the disappointment. So you hesitate, you delay, you tell yourself, I'm just not ready yet, or I need more clarity, or once I finish X, I'll start. But let's be honest, how many times have those delays actually brought more clarity? More often than not, they just reinforce the avoidance cycle. You end up watching yourself procrastinate and then judging yourself for it. And that self-judgment adds even more pressure. So you avoid even more. This is the real pain of procrastination for smart people. It's not just about tasks undone. It's about the silent self-criticism that comes with it. The feeling of I should be better than this. The quiet shame of knowing your potential and not living up to it. But here's the truth. The reason you procrastinate is not because you're not good enough. It's because you care. You want to do it right. You want to do it well. And that intention is beautiful, but it needs to be managed in a healthy way. So, how do we work with this? The first step is to shift the internal narrative. Instead of telling yourself, I need to be perfect, try this. I give myself permission to start messy. Because messy action is what creates momentum. Perfection comes later, after you've taken real, imperfect steps. The second step is to recognize that clarity comes from action, not before it. You don't figure things out by thinking. You figure them out by doing. Taking action creates feedback, and feedback creates clarity. That's how progress works. Imagine learning to ride a bike. You don't spend 6 months researching pedals and helmets. You get on the bike, you wobble, you fall, and eventually, you learn to ride. Most smart people want to skip the wobble. But the wobble is how you learn. Third, you need to redefine success. Instead of aiming for flawless results, aim for consistency. Make your success about showing up, not about being perfect. Celebrate progress. Celebrate effort. Celebrate the fact that you're doing something uncomfortable. This shift is powerful, especially for people used to excelling in school or work. Because when your identity has always been tied to being the smart one or the high performer, it can feel threatening to try something you're not already good at. But real growth only happens outside your comfort zone. And if you're always waiting to feel fully ready, you'll wait forever. Let me tell you something from my own journey. For years, I told myself I wanted to create an online course. I had the skills. I had the ideas. But I didn't create it. I prepared. I took notes. I read books about creating an online course. I studied structure. I watched interviews with other creators. I did everything except actually creating. Why? Because deep down, I was afraid the final result wouldn't match the vision in my head. I was afraid it would fall short, that it would be disappointing, that people might not take it seriously. But the day I gave myself permission to create badly, to just get words on the page with no pressure, it all shifted. That was the beginning. That was the crack in the wall. And from there, I kept going. Today, that online course exists. Not because I had the perfect plan, but because I allowed myself to begin. And I want the same for you. So, if you're someone who overthinks, overprepares, or waits for the perfect time, I see you. I understand you. And I'm here to tell you, your intelligence is not the problem. It's your attachment to doing everything right. What if you didn't need to do it right? What if you just needed to start? What if starting imperfectly is actually the smartest move you could make? Let that land. And next time you catch yourself researching, planning, or getting ready for the 5th day in a row, gently ask yourself, what's the smallest imperfect step I could take right now? Then take it, no matter how small. Because in the end, the difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck isn't intelligence. It's willingness. Willingness to start before it's perfect, to act before it feels easy, to show up even when the voice of doubt is loud. And you have that in you. I know you do. In the next module, we're going to shift gears and start building the exact systems and habits that make procrastination less likely, starting with the easiest way to build momentum when you feel stuck. But for now, just remember this. You don't need more information. You don't need another plan. You just need to start. You've got this. Let's move forward. Welcome to Module 2. Now that you understand the emotional and neurological roots of procrastination, it's time to get practical. In this video, we'll uncover something incredibly important, your personal procrastination triggers. Because here's the truth, procrastination isn't random. It's not some mysterious force that shows up out of nowhere. It follows patterns, very specific ones. And once you begin to recognize those patterns, you can break the loop before it even begins. Think of it like this. Procrastination is a habit loop. It always starts with a trigger, an emotion, a thought, or a situation that kicks off the cycle. Then comes the response, which is avoidance. And finally, a short-term reward, like relief or distraction. So our goal here is simple but powerful. Identify your most common triggers so we can interrupt the loop before it pulls you in. Let's start with a simple question. When do you procrastinate the most? Is it when you feel overwhelmed by a big task? Is it when you don't know where to start? Is it when you're tired? Or when the task feels boring? Or maybe when it feels emotionally vulnerable, like sending an important email, asking for help, or publishing your work online. Take a moment to reflect, because these moments are not just random, they're clues. And when you start noticing them, you gain leverage. Here's an example from my own life. I used to delay anything that involved video recording. Every time I had to record a lesson, I'd suddenly feel the urge to clean my desk, check my messages, or double-check the lighting for the 10th time. On the surface, it looked like preparation, but really I was avoiding discomfort. The real trigger was self-consciousness, the fear of not being good enough on camera. Once I saw that, I could work with it. I started preparing a small script the day before. I built a little ritual to calm my nerves. I reminded myself that I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to show up. And over time, that trigger lost its power. So what are your triggers? Here are a few common ones to look for. 1. Uncertainty, not knowing exactly what to do next. 2. Perfectionism, feeling like it has to be just right before you begin. 3. Fear of failure, worrying it won't turn out well. 4. Fear of success. Yes, really. The idea that success might bring pressure or expectations. 5. Overwhelm. The task just feels too big. 6. Boredom. It's hard to get started because the task feels uninteresting. 7. Low energy. You're physically or mentally drained. 8. Emotional discomfort. The task touches something vulnerable or personal. 9. Distractions. You're in an environment that's full of temptations. 10. Decision fatigue. You've made too many choices already and can't decide where to start. None of these make you weak. They make you human. But once you name them, you can start building a system that works with your psychology, not against it. So how do we start identifying your specific triggers? Here's a very simple tool I call pause and name. The next time you catch yourself procrastinating or feeling the urge to, just pause. Don't judge. Just observe. Then ask, what am I feeling right now? What's going on inside me? You might be surprised at how quickly the answer comes. Maybe you realize you're not lazy, you're just anxious, or tired, or unsure. That one moment of awareness can completely change your response. It gives you the power to make a different choice. And here's another tip. Start tracking your patterns. Keep a little procrastination log for 1 week. Every time you avoid something, jot down what the task was, what you were feeling, what you did instead, and what triggered it. You'll start to notice patterns very quickly. Let's say every time you need to answer emails, you feel a sudden urge to check the fridge. Sounds silly, right? But the real pattern might be email triggers anxiety, I seek distraction, I feel relief cycle repeats. Once you see it written down, it becomes obvious and fixable. And I want to say this clearly. We're not trying to eliminate triggers. You can't. You're not a robot. Triggers will always be there. But what can interrupt the reaction and build a better response? That's what the next 2 videos in this module will show you, how to lower the activation barrier and create simple rituals that make starting easier and more automatic. But it all begins with awareness. If you skip the step, you'll end up trying to fight procrastination at the surface, using willpower and discipline. And let's be honest, that might work for a few days, but it doesn't last. The real power lies in understanding your own mind, because once you see your patterns, they lose their grip. So before we move on, here's your mini challenge. Over the next 24 hours, try the pause and name method at least once. When you notice yourself avoiding something, stop for a few seconds and name the feeling. Don't fix it, just name it. You'll be surprised how empowering that tiny act can be. And remember, procrastination isn't a problem to be crushed. It's a signal to be listened to. In the next video, we'll talk about the activation barrier, why even simple tasks feel hard to start, and how to reduce that resistance instantly. You're doing great. Let's keep going. let's talk about something that might seem small but has a massive impact on your ability to take action. It's called the activation barrier, and if you've ever felt stuck even on the tiniest task, this is likely the reason why. The activation barrier is the mental and emotional resistance you feel right before starting a task. It's that invisible wall between you and the first step. It's the feeling of inertia, heaviness, or dread when you think about doing something, even if it's simple. And what's fascinating is that once you start, that resistance usually fades. But until you do, the activation barrier can feel like pushing a boulder uphill. Think about this for a moment. How often have you delayed a task for hours, or even days, only to finally do it in 10 minutes and think, why did I put that off for so long? That's the activation barrier in action. It's not the task itself that's hard. It's the starting that's hard. This is true for everything from sending an email to tidying your room to launching a business. The first few seconds of effort feel the heaviest. Once you're in motion, everything becomes easier. That's because action generates momentum. But starting? That's where most people get stuck. And there's a reason for that, neurologically speaking. Your brain is wired to conserve energy and avoid discomfort. So when it detects something unfamiliar, difficult, or uncertain, it resists. It says, let's do this later. Let's check our phone instead. Let's scroll, snack, or reorganize the bookshelf. This resistance isn't a moral failure. It's just biology. But once you understand that, you can begin to outsmart it. So how do we lower the activation barrier? The first step is to change your focus. Most people think about the whole task before they begin. They imagine all the steps, all the time it'll take, all the effort, and that feels overwhelming. So instead of focusing on the finish line, shift your focus to the starting line. Your only job is to take the first step. That's it. And here's the key. The first step should be so small that it feels almost too easy to ignore. It might be opening your laptop, writing one sentence, putting on your workout clothes, setting a 2-minute timer. Something so small that your brain doesn't resist it. This isn't cheating. This is how you build momentum. Because once you start, the resistance drops dramatically. Action fuels motivation, not the other way around. There's a psychological concept called task initiation anxiety. It's the discomfort you feel before starting. And studies show that this anxiety often disappears within the first few minutes of taking action. You don't need to be motivated to start. You just need to start, and motivation will catch up. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I struggled with writing. I loved having written, but I hated starting. I'd stare at the blank page for hours, looking for the perfect sentence. Nothing came. It felt paralyzing. But when I decided to try something new, to lower the bar, everything changed. I told myself, just open the document. That's your only goal today. Once I did that, I'd say, okay, just write one messy paragraph. No pressure. No expectations. And 9 times out of 10, I kept going. Because once I was in it, the resistance faded. The problem wasn't writing, it was starting to write. This works for almost anything. Want to clean the kitchen? Don't commit to cleaning the whole thing. Just wipe one counter. Want to read more? Just open the book and read one page. Want to start a big project? Just create the folder and name it. That's all. What you're doing here is using what I call micro-starts. These are tiny openings that create a crack in the resistance. Once there's a crack, the pressure releases. And once that pressure releases, you're free to keep going. This is also how habits are built. Small steps, low friction, repetition. When a task feels effortless to begin, it's far more likely to become part of your routine. Now, let's talk about another way to lower the activation barrier, reducing decision-making. One of the most underrated triggers for procrastination is decision fatigue. If your brain has to choose between 15 different options before starting, it will likely choose none. So simplify. If you want to journal every morning, don't ask, what should I write about? Have a go-to prompt ready. If you want to work out, don't spend 10 minutes deciding which video to follow. Have a default plan. The fewer decisions you have to make before you begin, the lower the barrier becomes. This is why routines are so powerful. They remove friction. They make starting automatic. You've probably heard of the famous quote, "Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going." But I take it a step further. Lowering the activation barrier is what gets you started. Habit just makes it easier to keep going. So, if you're waiting for motivation to strike, stop. Motivation is unpredictable, but structure? That's reliable. And structure starts with asking a very simple question. What's the tiniest possible action I can take right now? Not the perfect action, not the full task, just a single, frictionless first step. There's one more thing I want to touch on, how your environment impacts your activation barrier. If the thing you want to do is out of reach, physically or mentally, you're less likely to do it. If you want to read more, but your book is buried under paperwork, guess what? You won't read. If you want to exercise, but your shoes are in the other room and you don't know where your socks are, you'll probably skip it. But if the first step is visible, easy, and obvious, it lowers the friction. Your brain says, oh, that's no big deal. I can do that. This is what behavioral scientist BJ Fogg calls designing for simplicity. Make the right action the easy action. Stack the deck in your favor, because your environment either supports your intentions or sabotages them. So let's summarize what we've covered today. The activation barrier is that invisible resistance you feel before starting. It's biological, not personal, but it can be lowered. How? By focusing on the first step instead of the entire task, by making that step tiny and frictionless, by reducing decisions, and by designing your environment to support action, not avoidance. The next time you catch yourself hesitating, don't try to do the whole thing. Don't pressure yourself to be perfect. Just ask, what's my smallest possible starting point? Then do that, and watch what happens. In the next video, we'll explore how to build a friction-free starting ritual so that taking action becomes a habit, not a battle. You're making incredible progress. Let's keep going. Welcome to the third and final video in this module. So far, we've identified your personal triggers and explored the concept of the activation barrier, the invisible resistance you feel before taking action. Now it's time to take everything we've learned and transform it into something tangible, your own friction-free starting ritual. Because let's face it, if you have to think too much before taking action, you'll probably hesitate. And if there's even the slightest bit of resistance, mental, emotional, or physical, it becomes an excuse to delay. But what if taking action felt automatic? What if you didn't need to psych yourself up or wait for the perfect moment? What if getting started felt as natural as brushing your teeth in the morning? That's the power of a starting ritual. It's a short, repeatable sequence that signals to your brain, we're about to begin. It creates a sense of structure and familiarity, and over time, it reduces decision fatigue and emotional resistance. Think of elite athletes before a big game. Most of them have pre-game rituals. They tie their shoes a certain way. They listen to a specific song. They go through a warm-up routine that tells their brain and body, it's go time. We can use the same principle in everyday life, not for a sports match, but for sending that email, finishing that report, or finally starting the project you've been putting off. Let me walk you through how this works. A friction-free starting ritual has just one goal, to transition you from intention to action. It doesn't need to be fancy. In fact, the simpler, the better. All it needs to do is help you bypass the hesitation that happens in those first few minutes. The ritual acts like a mental switch. When you perform it consistently, your brain starts to associate it with productive action. It's like a cue that tells your system, we're shifting gears now. So what does that look like in practice? Let me share a few real examples, starting with my own. When I write, I always begin the same way. I make a cup of tea, sit in the same chair, put on a particular playlist, and open a specific document template. That's it. Nothing magical. But over time, this sequence has become so familiar that my brain knows, when this playlist starts, we're writing. And because I've done it so often, The resistance is much lower. I don't waste time deciding where to start. I don't argue with myself. The ritual carries me into the flow. You can create a similar ritual for anything, whether it's creative work, deep focus, exercise, or even housework. Start by choosing a consistent time or setting. Then add a couple of small actions that help you shift gears. These actions should feel pleasant, predictable, and simple. The goal is not to be efficient, it's to be consistent. One person I coached had trouble starting her daily planning routine. So we built her a 3-minute ritual. She would light a candle, pour a glass of water, and open her planner to a specific page with a favorite quote. That tiny ritual grounded her. It gave her structure. And over time, it made her daily planning automatic. Another client struggled with getting started on workouts at home. So his ritual became putting on his favorite workout gear, pressing play on a specific warm-up track, and doing one deep breath before the first move. That's it. No debate. No pressure. Just a ritual that gently transitioned him into action. Notice something here. We're not trying to force productivity. We're creating an invitation to begin. A bridge between hesitation and motion. And here's why this works so well. Rituals reduce cognitive load. They remove the need to decide, prepare, or motivate yourself. They take away friction. And when friction is low, action becomes natural. Over time, this creates a psychological association. When I do this, I start. That link becomes stronger with each repetition. And before you know it, your ritual doesn't just start your task. It starts your state of mind. Now, you might be wondering, how do I build my ritual? Start small. Think of something you've been avoiding regularly. Maybe it's studying, writing, cleaning, or working on a personal project. Then ask yourself, what small sequence could help me begin with ease, not pressure? You might include physical cues, like sitting in a specific spot, changing your environment, or putting your phone in another room. You might include sensory elements like music, lighting, or smell. You might even pair it with something enjoyable, like a hot drink or a calming breath. The important thing is that it's repeatable. Do the same sequence every time. Over the first few days, it might feel silly or forced. That's okay. It's not about immediate results. It's about creating a consistent signal. Here's another trick. Make the first task so easy that it lowers any remaining resistance. Your ritual might end with opening a file, writing the date, or doing a 1-minute timer. Something small, clear, and achievable. Remember, you're not committing to a full hour of deep work. You're committing to the ritual. Once you begin, the momentum will often carry you further than you expected. And don't worry if your ritual feels too simple. In fact, simplicity is its strength. You don't want to create something that requires planning or willpower. This isn't a production. It's a doorway. And here's the best part. Your ritual becomes a form of self-trust. Every time you follow through, even if just for a few minutes, you strengthen the message. I can begin. I can show up. That message rewires everything. So as we wrap up this video, I want to invite you to build your own starting ritual today. Keep it light. Keep it simple. Maybe 3 steps. Try it with just one task tomorrow, something you've been putting off. Run the ritual. Then do just the first tiny step. That's all. You don't need to crush your to-do list. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to start. Again and again and again. And with each repetition, the ritual becomes stronger. The barrier becomes lower. And the habit becomes easier. In the next module, we'll shift our focus to building unstoppable momentum, how to move from tiny starts into consistent, sustainable progress. But for now, you've got everything you need to begin softly, simply, and with confidence. Let's talk about one of the simplest and most powerful tools in this entire course. It's called the 2-minute rule, and it has the potential to completely shift the way you think about action, habits, and momentum. By now, you understand that procrastination isn't a personality flaw, it's a pattern. And the best way to break a pattern is to do something different. Something small, something that interrupts the loop without triggering resistance. That's exactly what this rule is designed to do. So here's how it works. The 2-minute rule says this: if a task takes less than 2 minutes to do it immediately. That's the classic version. But there's also a second version, one that's even more powerful for overcoming procrastination and building momentum. It says, when starting a new habit or task, begin with just 2 minutes, not 20, not an hour, not until it's perfect, just 2 minutes. Why does this work? Because 2 minutes feels harmless. There's almost no resistance. Your brain doesn't push back. You're not committing to a marathon. You're just taking the tiniest step possible. And that changes everything. Let me give you a few examples. If you want to start reading more, don't plan to read for an hour. Just read 1 page. Set a timer for 2 minutes. That's all. If you want to start exercising, don't commit to a full workout. Just roll out your mat. Do some stretches. Move for 2 minutes. If you want to write, don't pressure yourself to finish a chapter. Just open the document. Write a few lines. You're not trying to be productive. You're building a relationship with action. You're showing your brain, look, starting isn't so bad. And that's where momentum begins. Because here's what usually happens. Once you start, you keep going. Those 2 minutes become 5, then 10, then maybe 30. But even if they don't, you've still won. Because you took action. You interrupted the loop. You showed up. And that's the real goal here. Most people fail to take action because they make the first step too big. They tell themselves, I need to write for an hour. Or I have to clean the whole apartment. Or I need to get through all my emails. And that pressure creates overwhelm. Overwhelm creates avoidance. And avoidance becomes the habit. But when the first step is tiny, so tiny it feels almost effortless, you flip the switch. You reduce friction. You lower the activation barrier. You build momentum without needing motivation. Let me share a personal story. When I first started building my online course business, I had a huge amount of resistance to filming videos. I had the equipment, the script, the setup, but every time I sat down to record, I froze. It felt like too much, too big, too serious. Then I tried the 2-minute rule. I told myself, I'm not filming the whole video. I'm just going to turn on the camera and say the first sentence. That's it. 1 sentence. No pressure. And guess what? Once I said that first sentence, I kept going. Not always, but often. And even when I didn't, I still felt successful. Because I had started. That feeling of success, of starting, is addictive. It creates a feedback loop. The more you experience it, the more your brain craves it. And the easier it becomes to repeat. This is the secret to building momentum. Make starting feel good. Not stressful. Not overwhelming. Just doable. The 2-minute rule also helps build consistency. And consistency is more important than intensity. Anyone can push through one intense day of work. But the people who make real progress are the ones who show up consistently, even if only for a few minutes. Because consistency builds trust with yourself. And that trust becomes confidence. And that confidence turns into action. Again and again. So how can you start using the 2-minute rule in your own life? Very simply, choose one area where you've been stuck. Maybe it's a creative project, a health habit, a daily routine. Then ask, what's the 2-minute version of this task? Not the full thing. Just the first 2 minutes. If it's journaling, just open the notebook and write 1 sentence. If it's preparing for a presentation, just open the slide deck and look at the title. If it's organizing your workspace, just clear 1 corner. If it's replying to emails, just respond to 1. You're not aiming for productivity. You're aiming for motion. Because motion leads to clarity, and clarity leads to progress. There's something else I want to say here. Sometimes people resist this idea because it feels too easy. They say, 2 minutes won't change anything. But here's the truth. Easy is the point. We're not trying to prove anything here. We're trying to rewire your habits. And that starts with safety. When action feels safe, your brain stops resisting. And once the resistance is gone, results start to appear almost effortlessly. So don't underestimate what 2 minutes can do. It's not about what you accomplish in that time. It's about who you're becoming by choosing action over avoidance. And the more often you choose action, the more natural it becomes. One final tip: create what I call a 2 minute list. It's a list of small actions across different areas of your life that take less than 2 minutes to start. You can keep it on your phone, your desk, or even on a sticky note. That way, when you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or unmotivated, you don't have to think. You just pick something, you act, you build momentum. So, to wrap up, the 2 minute rule is a deceptively simple but incredibly powerful way to break through procrastination. It lowers the barrier to entry, reduces pressure, and helps you build trust in your ability to start. Your challenge after this video is simple. Choose one task you've been avoiding and do the 2 minute version of it. Right now, not later, not tomorrow. Just try it. You don't need to finish it. You just need to start. Because starting is everything. In the next video, we'll explore how to move from micro goals to macro results, how small wins compound over time to create real, sustainable momentum. You're doing amazing work. Let's keep going. Let's talk about a mindset shift that can dramatically change how you approach your day, your goals, and your long-term success. It's the shift from macro stress to micro goals. And it might just be the secret to finally moving forward without feeling overwhelmed. We live in a culture that glorifies big goals. The 5-year plan, the ultimate transformation, the perfect routine. And there's nothing wrong with having vision. Vision gives us direction. It's motivating to dream big. But here's the trap. Big goals often come with big pressure. And big pressure usually leads to paralysis. Have you ever set a huge goal and then immediately felt frozen by it? Maybe you told yourself, this month I'll finally get back in shape, or this week I'll finish that entire project, or today I'll be productive all day long. And then you didn't even start. Or you started, but quit after a day. Not because you weren't capable, but because the weight of the goal created macro stress, a constant feeling of not doing enough, being behind, or needing to catch up. This kind of pressure triggers your stress response. Your brain sees the big goal not as exciting, but as overwhelming. And what happens when your brain feels overwhelmed? You already know it avoids, it escapes, it procrastinates. That's why we need to flip the script. Instead of macro stress, we want to focus on micro goals. Tiny, clear, specific actions that you can complete today, maybe even in the next 10 minutes. Goals that are so small they're almost impossible to fail. Goals that give you a sense of completion, control, and forward motion. Because here's the truth, motivation doesn't come from planning big. It comes from completing small. Micro goals give your brain a win, and that win creates momentum. It tells your nervous system we're safe, we're capable, we're moving forward. That's when everything starts to feel lighter. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say you want to write a book. That's a macro goal. It's huge, exciting, yes, but also intimidating. So instead, you set a micro goal, write for 5 minutes today. That's doable. It's clear, it's non-threatening, and it gets you into action. Once you start, you might write for 20 minutes, or just the 5. Either way, you win. You've taken real, measurable action toward the big dream without the overwhelm. The magic of micro goals is that they shrink the task to match your current capacity, not your ideal capacity, not your best day, your real day. That's what makes them powerful. They meet you where you are. And the best part? Micro goals compound. Like interest in a savings account, small consistent deposits add up over time. A few minutes a day becomes hours over a month. One sentence becomes a chapter. A few stretches become a habit. One focused task becomes a productive week. And here's what's fascinating. As your consistency builds, so does your self-trust. And self-trust is more valuable than any system or planner or hack. When you trust yourself to follow through on small goals, you stop relying on motivation. You build rhythm. You build identity. You stop saying, I need to become productive, and you start believing, I am someone who follows through. That's a huge shift. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't have big goals. It means your big goals need to be broken down into micro goals, clear, manageable, bite-sized steps that create forward motion without creating fear. Let's say your big goal is to declutter your home. Instead of saying, I'll clean the whole house this weekend, try, I'll organize one drawer today. Instead of, I'll fix my diet, try, I'll prepare one healthy meal today. Instead of, I'll get back in shape, try, I'll move my body for 5 minutes right now. Every small win is a signal to your brain, I can do this. And once your brain believes that, you begin to act differently, with less resistance, with more flow. Let me share something I learned from working with clients over the years. The ones who made the biggest transformations weren't the ones with the most intense plans. They were the ones who kept showing up for the small stuff. The person who walked 10 minutes every day for 30 days felt better than the person who did one intense workout and gave up. The writer who added one sentence to their draft every day made more progress than the one who waited for the perfect weekend to write all day. The client who answered just one email each morning ended up more organized than the one who planned but never executed. Consistency beats intensity, always. And micro goals are what make consistency sustainable. Now you might be asking, what's the difference between a micro goal and just being lazy or doing the bare minimum? Great question. The difference is intention. A micro goal is not about lowering your standards. It's about lowering the barrier to entry. It's about saying, I care about this enough to show up imperfectly, consistently. It's not about avoiding effort. It's about making effort feel safe. And when effort feels safe, you're more likely to repeat it. So how do you create effective micro goals? Start with this question. What's the smallest, most specific step I can take today that moves me closer to what I want? Not someday. Not when I feel ready, today. And be honest with yourself. If you're feeling low energy, make the goal smaller. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The goal is to build momentum, not to impress anyone. Keep the goal actionable and finishable. Work on project is vague. Open project file and write 3 lines is clear. Eat better is vague. Add 1 vegetable to lunch is clear. Micro goals also help you recover faster when you fall off track. Instead of waiting for the next big moment to start over, you can restart with something small right now. No guilt, no pressure, just action. So as we wrap up this video, I want to challenge you to choose one micro goal today. Just one. Make it tiny. Make it clear. Make it something you can finish in 5 minutes or less. Then do it. And once you do, celebrate it. Not because it was big, but because it was done. That feeling of completion is powerful. Let it register. Let your brain feel it, because that's what keeps you coming back. In the next video, we'll take all of this and show you how to turn it into a repeatable system through the 30-day focus challenge. But for now, remember this. Big goals are great, but small actions are what make them real. Think smaller. Move forward. You've got this. You've made it to the final video of Module 3. By now, you've learned how to lower resistance with the 2-minute rule, how to shift from macro stress to micro goals, and how to build momentum with small, consistent action. Now it's time to bring it all together with something I call the 30-day focus challenge. This is where theory becomes practice, where progress becomes visible, and where you start to rebuild that deep inner trust in yourself, the belief that you can show up, you can follow through, and you can create change. Let's start with why this challenge exists. Most people try to change too much, too fast. They go all in for a few days, maybe even a week, and then burn out. Or they get distracted. Or life gets in the way. And then comes the guilt, the shame, the story of I failed again. That story is what we're here to rewrite. This challenge is not about intensity. It's not about being perfect. It's about building one simple habit, the habit of showing up consistently, gently and with intention. So here's how it works. The 30-day focus challenge asks you to choose one task, one project, or one personal goal to work on for just a few minutes each day for the next 30 days. You'll commit to a tiny action, something you can complete in 5 minutes or less. The same action every day or a small variation of it as long as it moves you in the same direction. Your job is not to make massive progress. Your job is simply to not break the chain. Because the power of this challenge is in consistency, not in how much you do, but in how often you do it. Let me give you a few examples. Let's say your goal is to write a book. Your daily action could be to write one paragraph. Just one, every day, for 30 days. Maybe your goal is to improve your mental clarity. Your action might be to journal for 3 minutes each morning. Maybe you want to get your body moving again. Your action could be to stretch for 5 minutes each day. Or maybe your goal is to rebuild focus. Your challenge could be to work without distraction for just 5 minutes per day. Remember, the action is small, but the impact is big because it trains your brain to associate action with safety, consistency, and progress. You're creating what's called a success identity. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who avoids, hesitates, or gives up. And you start thinking of yourself as someone who shows up every single day. And that changes everything. Now, let's talk logistics. Each day, you'll track your action. You can do this on paper, in a notebook, on your phone, or using the downloadable template I've included in this course. It's a simple 30-day grid with a space to check off each day you complete your action. This act of tracking is very important. It gives you visual proof of your consistency, and it makes progress feel tangible. Even if the action is small, you can see that you're moving forward, and that motivates you to keep going. If you miss a day, don't panic. Don't quit. Just restart the next day. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be committed, to build a rhythm that feels realistic and sustainable. Here are a few quick tips to make your challenge successful. First, choose a time of day that feels consistent and calm. Maybe it's first thing in the morning. Maybe it's during your lunch break. Maybe it's right before bed. What matters is that you create a predictable window for your action. Second, pair your challenge with a friction-free starting ritual. This could be as simple as making tea, sitting in your usual spot, and opening your journal or project file. Ritual makes the habit feel automatic. Third, keep the action small, even if you feel like doing more. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's important. The point isn't to exhaust yourself, it's to build consistency. If you feel inspired to go beyond the daily action, that's great. But don't raise the bar. Stick to the original goal and treat anything extra as a bonus. Finally, celebrate every day you complete the action. I don't mean throwing a party, but acknowledge it. Smile. Say, I did it. Check the box. That small reward tells your brain, this is worth repeating. You might be surprised how powerful this becomes. By week 2, you may find yourself craving the routine. By week 3, it'll feel like part of who you are. And by the end of 30 days, you'll not only have made real progress, you'll have built something much more important, belief in yourself. This challenge isn't just about finishing something. It's about proving to yourself that you can stay with something, even when it's small, even when life gets busy, even when you don't feel like it. And that's the foundation of true momentum. Now, before we finish, I want to make one thing clear. There will be days when it feels pointless. Days when your brain says, this isn't enough, or this won't make a difference. That's normal. Your mind is used to big goals and big pressure, but you're teaching it a new way. Remind yourself, consistency compounds. Small steps add up. I'm building something real even if I can't see it yet. Let this be your quiet rebellion against the hustle culture. You don't need to do more. You need to do less, more often. So here's your next move. Download the 30-day Focus Challenge template. Choose one small, repeatable action you'll commit to for the next 30 days. Then schedule your time, start your ritual, and begin. Day 1 is today. You've got everything you need. You've already come this far. And now it's time to build the habit of moving forward, one tiny step at a time. In the next module, we'll shift gears and explore how to master your energy and mindset, because your focus depends on more than just behavior. It also depends on how you feel, how you recover, and how you speak to yourself. But for now, just take that first small step. You'll be amazed what happens when you stop starting over and start showing up. Let's keep going. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked when we're trying to be more focused, more productive, or more in control of our time, our energy. Because no matter how many strategies you learn, no matter how well you plan your day, it won't matter if your energy is low, scattered, or depleted. And that's where daily rituals come in, specifically your morning and evening rituals. These are two of the most powerful moments in your day. Why? Because they act as anchors. They set the tone for how you begin, and they influence how well you recover. And both are crucial if you want to stop procrastinating and start showing up consistently. Let's begin with the morning. How you start your day shapes your entire mindset. If you wake up and immediately check your phone, read emails, or scroll social media, your brain is flooded with stimulation before it's even fully awake. That might feel normal, but what it actually does is hijack your focus. You're reacting to the world before you've even connected with yourself. Instead, imagine starting your day with just a few minutes of clarity. You don't need a complex routine or a 5 a.m. wake-up call. You just need intentionality, a moment to check in, reset, and remember what matters. A simple morning ritual might look like this. You wake up, sit up in bed, and take 3 deep breaths. You drink a glass of water. You write down one thing you're grateful for and one small thing you'll do today to feel focused. That's it. No pressure. Just a few intentional steps that signal to your brain, we are starting this day on purpose. What you're doing here is directing your attention before the world tries to grab it. You're taking back control. And over time, this creates a strong foundation for action, clarity, and consistency. Now, let's shift to the evening. Most people don't realize this, but how you end your day is just as important as how you start it. If your brain doesn't have a clear-off switch, it keeps spinning long into the night. You stay mentally wired, physically tired, and emotionally drained. And the result? Poor sleep, restless thoughts, and low energy the next morning. A calming evening ritual helps you shift from doing to resting. It tells your nervous system, you're safe now. It's okay to let go. Again, this doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need candles, journaling prompts, or a bubble bath every night. Just a few simple actions that you repeat, ideally in the same order, so your brain recognizes the pattern. It could look like this. You turn off all screens 30 minutes before bed. You dim the lights. You stretch for 2 minutes. You write down one thing that went well today and one thing you'll release. You brush your teeth and get into bed without checking your phone again. That's it. That's a ritual. And the reason it works is that rituals are familiar. Familiarity creates safety. Safety lowers stress. And lowered stress leads to deeper sleep, more recovery, and better energy the next day. You see, rituals are not about discipline. They're about state shifting. They help you move from chaos to clarity, from stimulation to focus, from worry to rest. And they don't have to be long. In fact, short rituals are often more effective because you're more likely to stick with them. A good ritual feels like a gentle container, structured, but not rigid. It should support you, not stress you. Here's the beautiful thing about rituals. Once you practice them consistently, they become automatic. You won't have to think about them anymore. They become part of your identity. And that identity, someone who starts the day with focus and ends it with intention, becomes your new normal. And when your normal changes, so does your life. So let me ask you, what does your current morning look like? Is it rushed, reactive, chaotic? What about your evenings? Are they calm, or do they blend into mindless scrolling, snacking, or stress? No judgment. Just notice. Because awareness is where change begins. Here's what I recommend. Today, Choose one ritual, either morning or evening, to begin with. Start with just 2 or 3 steps. Keep it simple. Keep it realistic. The point is not to build the perfect routine, it's to build something repeatable, something that serves you. And once you've done it for a few days, reflect. How do you feel when you start your day with intention? How do you sleep when your mind has had time to calm down? What difference does it make when you give yourself that little bit of structure, that little space to breathe? You'll start to notice that your energy improves, your clarity sharpens, your decision-making gets easier, and yes, your ability to take action increases. Because focus isn't just about willpower, it's about state management. And state management starts with daily rituals. If you want to go a step further, create a small visual reminder, maybe a sticky note near your bed or a short checklist on your phone. Something that says, "This matters. You matter. This is how we begin. This is how we end." Because the truth is, you don't need more hours in the day. You need more presence in the hours you already have. And presence starts with clarity. Clarity begins with structure. And structure starts with ritual. So as we close this video, I want to leave you with one simple idea. You don't have to do it all. You just have to begin and end your day on purpose. In the next video, we'll talk about how to reset your mindset in just 90 seconds, especially on those days when everything feels off. But before that, choose your ritual. Commit to it for the next 3 days, morning or evening. Just 3 days. And notice how much power there is in just a few quiet minutes designed just for you. Have you ever had a day where everything feels off? Where no matter how much you try to focus, your mind is scattered, your mood is low, and even the simplest tasks feel heavy. We all have days like that. It's part of being human. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck in that state. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment, a wave of motivation, or a better mood to take action. You just need a simple, powerful way to reset your mindset. And today, I'll show you how to do exactly that in just 90 seconds. That's right, 90 seconds. You see, mindset isn't a fixed state. It's flexible. It shifts throughout the day, depending on your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, and your environment. And while you can't always control what triggers your stress or resistance, you can influence how you respond to it. So let's talk about the 90-second reset. This is a tool I teach clients who struggle with procrastination, stress, or emotional overload. It's a simple practice you can do anytime you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or disconnected from yourself. It's based on a powerful combination of neuroscience and mindfulness, and the best part is, it takes less time than scrolling through your phone. Here's how it works. The next time you feel off, unfocused, anxious, irritated, tired, pause for a moment. Don't try to push through. Don't distract yourself. Just stop, breathe, and bring your awareness back to your body. Set a timer for 90 seconds. Yes, really, just 90 seconds. And for that minute and a half, give yourself full permission to feel whatever you're feeling, without judgment, without fixing it, and without trying to be productive. You might be thinking, how is that supposed to help? Well, here's what science tells. Emotions, if left uninterrupted, typically rise, peak, and pass within about 90 seconds. That's according to research by neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolt-Taylor. She found that when you experience an emotion, say, frustration or anxiety, your brain releases a chemical reaction that lasts just a minute and a half. After that, it's your thoughts that keep the emotion alive. In other words, if you give yourself space to feel it, without resisting or overthinking it, it will pass. You'll come out the other side clearer, calmer, and more in control. So during this 90-second reset, you don't need to do anything fancy. Just sit or stand still, close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and take a few deep, slow breaths. Pay attention to where the feeling shows up in your body. Is there tension in your chest? Tightness in your neck? A racing heartbeat? Just notice it. Let your breath move through it. If your mind tries to analyze or fix it, gently bring your attention back to the sensation, not the story. You're not solving anything. You're simply being with it. And then, after 90 seconds, you ask, what do I need right now? Maybe it's water. Maybe it's a stretch. Maybe it's to start that next small action like we practiced in earlier modules. Or maybe it's just to breathe and do nothing for a little longer. What matters is that now you're choosing from awareness, not from reactivity. You've interrupted the autopilot. You've created space, and that space gives you power. Let me share a quick example. A client of mine used to freeze up every time she had to check her inbox. Just opening her email triggered stress. She'd feel it in her stomach, her breathing would get shallow, and before she even read a message, she'd already be overwhelmed. We worked together on using the 90-second reset. The next time that tension showed up, she didn't avoid it. She didn't dive into work. She paused, breathed, noticed the tightness, let the emotion move through, and after 90 seconds, she opened her inbox, and it didn't feel nearly as hard. That's the magic of this reset. It doesn't erase your challenges, but it brings you back to yourself so you can face them with clarity rather than fear or resistance. This practice is also incredibly useful when you fall into the trap of self-criticism. You know those moments when you think, why can't I just get it together? Or I should have done more today. Instead of spiraling into guilt or shame, pause. Take 90 seconds. Breathe. Feel. Reset. And then come back with a softer mindset. This isn't about being passive. It's about being present. And presence is what breaks the cycle of overthinking, self-pressure, and emotional avoidance. Now, here's the key to making this work long-term. Don't wait for a meltdown to use it. Practice it daily. Even when you feel okay, build the habit of checking in with yourself. You can use this technique before starting work, after receiving stressful news, when you feel distracted, or anytime you notice yourself slipping into avoidance. Think of it as an emotional micro-reset, a way to clean the lens before you take action. Over time, this 90-second ritual becomes more than just a technique, it becomes part of your internal toolkit. It reminds you that no feeling is final, no state is permanent, and no task is too big when you meet it with presence. So here's your challenge after this video. Today, or even right now, try the 90-second reset. Find a quiet spot. Set a timer. Breathe. Feel. Let go. Don't rush it. Don't judge it. Just allow it. And afterward, write down one word for how you feel. Not a whole paragraph, just one word. Calm, clear, grounded. Maybe even still a little messy. That's okay. The point isn't perfection. It's connection. Because from that place of connection, your next step, no matter how small, will come from clarity, not confusion. In the next video, we'll talk about common myths around motivation that might be keeping you stuck without even realizing it. But for now, just breathe. You have everything you need. Let's talk about motivation. Or rather, what most people believe about motivation, and why those beliefs might be the very thing keeping you stuck. Because if you've been waiting to feel motivated before you take action, if you've been blaming yourself for not being in the right mood or not feeling energized enough, then this video is going to be a breath of fresh air. Let's begin with a hard truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It's inconsistent. It comes and goes, often without warning. And if you base your progress on whether or not you feel like it, you'll struggle to build any kind of consistency. But most of us have been taught to treat motivation as the key to success. You see it in the quotes, the Instagram posts, the productivity videos. You just need to get motivated. Find your why. Light the fire inside. And while those ideas aren't wrong, they're incomplete. Because motivation is not what gets you results. Action is. So here's the first myth. Myth number 1, I need to feel motivated before I start. The truth? Motivation doesn't create action. Action creates motivation. You feel motivated after you have started, not before. Once you take a small step, your brain starts releasing dopamine. That's the chemical that gives you that little boost, that sense of reward. It's what makes you want to keep going. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for motivation, flip the script. Ask, what's one small thing I can do right now, even if I don't feel like it? Then do that. That action creates momentum, and momentum is stronger than motivation. Let's move to the second myth. Myth number 2, successful people are always motivated. No, they're not. They just don't rely on motivation. They build systems, habits, and routines that carry them through days when they don't feel like showing up. They understand that some days will feel flat. Some days will feel heavy, and that's okay. They've learned that the goal isn't to be motivated every day, it's to be disciplined enough to do small things anyway, and not discipline in the grind harder kind of way. I mean gentle, sustainable discipline. Showing up with kindness, even on the messy days. Now for one of the most damaging myths of all. Myth number 3, if I'm not motivated, something is wrong with me. We tend to take lack of motivation personally. We think it means we're lazy, unproductive, or not cut out for what we want. But that's just not true. Motivation is a state, not a character trait. It fluctuates based on sleep, stress, hormones, environment, diet, and mental load. It's normal to feel low some days. It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're human. When you stop judging yourself for low motivation, you free up energy to focus on what does work: action, structure, and self-compassion. And here's something else to consider. Waiting for motivation can be a form of avoidance. It feels like you're doing something, I'm getting inspired, or I'm just waiting for the right time, but in reality, you're postponing the thing that would actually build momentum. So what can you do instead? You build what I call a motivation-independent system. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And you start asking, what's the next step I can take regardless of how I feel? You create rituals, routines, and micro goals, like we talked about in earlier modules. You make your environment support your action. You reduce friction. You take care of your energy. You track progress, not perfection. You stop trying to feel motivated, and you start building an identity that says, I'm someone who follows through. Because when your behavior isn't tied to your mood, you become unstoppable. Let me give you a quick example. A friend of mine is a full-time writer. People always tell her, you must be so motivated to write every day. And she laughs, because she doesn't feel motivated most days. What she has is a writing ritual. She lights a candle, plays instrumental music, opens a document, and writes the first messy paragraph. Some days, that's all she does. Other days, she gets in the zone and writes for hours. But her success doesn't come from waiting for inspiration. It comes from creating a container where inspiration is invited, but not required. That's what I want for you. Stop chasing motivation. Create conditions where action is easy, repeatable, and safe. And let the motivation show up when it's ready. One more thing before we close. There's a huge emotional cost to chasing motivation. It creates guilt. You keep thinking, if I were more motivated, I'd be doing better. That guilt drains your energy. And ironically, it makes you even less likely to act. So here's your reframe. You don't need to feel amazing to make progress. You just need to feel willing. And even if you're not willing, you can start anyway. Because sometimes the magic happens not when you're inspired, but when you show up anyway. That's the kind of consistency that builds trust. That builds results. That builds a life where you're not constantly fighting yourself. So as we wrap up this video, I want you to notice your relationship with motivation. Do you wait for it to appear before you act? Do you judge yourself when it's missing? Do you believe it's the key to success? And if so, are you ready to let that story go? Instead of chasing motivation, let's build habits. Let's reduce friction. Let's create rituals that support you. Let's allow rest when you need it and gentle discipline when you don't feel like it. Because real progress isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's not always exciting. It's quiet, repetitive, simple. It's one small action done consistently, especially on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. In the next module, we'll explore how to turn your momentum into long-term habits that last. But for now, take a deep breath. You're no longer waiting. You're already moving. Let's be honest. Most of us don't have a time problem. We have a focus problem. And the biggest thief of our focus? It's sitting right next to us, or maybe even in our hand right now. It buzzes, pings, scrolls, and refreshes. You guessed it, it's your phone. Distraction is no longer a minor inconvenience. It's a constant, invisible drain on your energy, your attention, and your ability to follow through. And the truth is, if you want to take control of your habits, your mindset, and your goals, you need to take control of your digital environment. But don't worry, this isn't about throwing your phone out the window or deleting every app you love. It's about becoming intentional, about designing your digital space in a way that supports your focus, not sabotages it. Let's start with the big picture. We live in a world designed to pull our attention in 1,000 directions. Notifications, news, social media, group chats, emails, and each one of those little pings might only take a few seconds, but the cost is much higher. Every time you switch focus, your brain has to recalibrate. And that mental switching comes with a price: reduced clarity, reduced energy, and reduced productivity. In fact, research shows that it can take up to 23 minutes to fully refocus after a single interruption. Let that sink in. One message, one alert, one scroll, and your brain loses nearly half an hour of deep focus. Now imagine how many times a day that's happening without you even realizing it. This is why digital distraction isn't just annoying, it's expensive. Not in money, but in mental bandwidth. It keeps you in a reactive state. It trains your brain to crave stimulation instead of depth. And it makes meaningful progress feel harder than it needs to be. So what do? We create a digital detox system, not a detox from technology itself, but from unconscious technology use. The goal is not to remove your phone from your life. It's to remove the friction between you and your focus. Let's start with the 80-20th principle. You've probably heard of it. 80% of outcomes come from 20% of causes. When it comes to distraction, 80% of your attention is usually stolen by just a few apps, a few habits, or a few triggers. Your first step is to identify your top 3 distractions. Take a moment and think. Which apps do you open without thinking? Which notifications make you jump immediately? What digital habits leave you feeling drained instead of energized? For many people, the answer is obvious: Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, email. For others, it's news sites or YouTube. The exact platforms don't matter. What matters is your relationship with them. Now, here's where the detox begins. You don't need to delete these apps, but you do need to interrupt the autopilot. And that starts with 2 simple steps: remove triggers and add friction. Step 1, remove the triggers. That means turning off non-essential notifications. Not just muting them, disabling them. Most apps are not urgent. They're just loud. Go into your settings and get intentional. Do you really need to be alerted every time someone likes a post, tags you in a meme, or sends you a newsletter? Probably not. Also, remove distracting apps from your home screen. Out of sight, out of mind. If you want to use them, make it a conscious choice, something you have to search for, not stumble into. Step 2, add friction. This sounds strange, but friction is actually your friend when it comes to focus. When something is too easy to access, your brain will go for it out of habit. But if you add just a tiny barrier, like logging out, using app timers, or moving your phone to another room, you create space for a different choice. Remember, we're not trying to eliminate temptation. We're making the default behavior less automatic. Another tip that works incredibly well: design focus zones. Decide in advance when and where you'll be offline. Maybe it's the first hour of your day. Maybe it's during deep work blocks. Maybe it's the hour before bed. Create phone-free pockets of time where your mind can breathe. One of my favorite tools for this is airplane mode, or better yet, focus mode, which you can customize on most phones. You can allow certain calls or apps and block everything else. It's not restrictive, it's freeing. You're giving your brain space to think, to rest, to go deep. That's where clarity lives. That's where creativity lives. And that's where real progress happens. Now, let's talk about digital routines. Just like morning and evening rituals, your tech habits can be ritualized too. For example, decide when you'll check messages and email, maybe twice a day, not all day. Create a scroll window 15 minutes after lunch, and then that's it. Set a digital curfew at night. No screens after 9 p.m. Let your mind wind down. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. These aren't rules, they're invitations. Invitations to come back to yourself, to your goals, to your real life. Let me say this clearly. Your time and your attention are your most valuable resources. Every time you protect them, you reclaim your power. You don't owe your attention to every message. You don't owe your energy to every headline. You are allowed to create boundaries. You are allowed to turn off the noise. And the impact is huge. When your digital environment is aligned with your priorities, everything gets easier. You stop feeling so scattered. You make decisions faster. You follow through more often. You feel mentally clear, maybe for the first time in a while. So here's your challenge after this video. Today, take 10 minutes and do a digital cleanup. Turn off one type of notification. Move one app off your home screen. Delete one distraction that no longer serves you. Then create one phone-free focus block tomorrow, even just 30 minutes. Use it to work, to think, or just to be quiet. Notice how you feel afterward. And remember, this isn't about being anti-technology. It's about being pro-attention. Your focus is your superpower. And now, you're protecting it. In the next video, we'll explore how to build accountability systems that actually work without relying on willpower or discipline alone. But for now, breathe, reset, and take back control of your digital space. Let's be honest. Most of us don't struggle because we don't know what to do. We struggle because we don't do it consistently. And the biggest reason for that? We rely too much on willpower, which, as we've already discussed, is unreliable. That's why we need something else. Something stronger, more sustainable. Something that makes following through feel automatic rather than forced. And that's where accountability systems come in. Now, when you hear the word accountability, you might think of being told what to do. Deadlines, checklists, pressure. But that's not the kind of accountability we're talking about here. We're talking about supportive accountability. Systems that help you show up, not because you're being forced, but because you're being held. Held by structure, by relationships, by visibility, by rhythm. Let's start with this simple truth. We're more likely to follow through when someone else is watching. Not in a judgmental way, but in a connected, human way. It's why coaching works. It's why group programs work. It's why even a simple message to a friend saying, "I'm going to do this today," makes it more likely to happen. We're social creatures. We're wired for connection. And when we feel seen in our goals, we feel more committed to honoring them, not just for ourselves, but for the person who's witnessing our process. So, what does that look like in real life? There are 3 levels of accountability that work well, especially when layered together. The first is self-accountability. This is your internal structure, your habits, routines, and tracking systems. It's you showing up for yourself because it feels good, because you've created rituals and rhythms that are rewarding. For example, using a habit tracker, marking off your 30-day focus challenge, journaling your wins. Visual progress is powerful. It reminds your brain, I'm moving forward. And that evidence builds trust. But here's the catch. Self-accountability only works if you're already in motion. If you're stuck or inconsistent, you might need an external boost. That brings us to level 2. The second is relational accountability. This is where another person helps you stay on track, not by nagging you, but by witnessing you. It could be a friend, a coach, a colleague, or a community. The point is, when you speak your goal out loud and someone else hears it, it becomes real. You can use this in simple ways. You could send a quick message to a friend. Today, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on my project. I'll let you know when it's done. That's it. No pressure, just visibility. Or set up a weekly check-in, 5 minutes, where you say what you did, what you didn't, and what's next. It creates rhythm, and rhythm creates progress. If you want more structure, you can use apps or tools like accountability partners, digital check-ins, or focus rooms where people work silently together online. It doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is that you're not alone. You've created a soft form of commitment that helps you keep going even when motivation fades. Now let's go one level deeper. The third level is environmental accountability. This means designing your space and scheduling in a way that makes follow-through easier and avoidance harder. For example, if your goal is to write, set up a writing corner where everything is ready. If you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes in the same spot each night. If you want to limit screen time, put your phone in another room during focus hours. Your environment should reflect your intentions, because your surroundings either support your habits or sabotage them. Even the people around you are part of this environment. Are they encouraging, distracting, supportive? Consider who you spend your time with and how they influence your energy and focus. So, let's bring this all together. If you want to stay consistent, stop relying on motivation or willpower alone. Build layers of accountability. Start with self-tracking. Then add gentle social visibility. Then design an environment that supports your goals. These layers don't make you weak, they make you smart. Because consistency is not about strength. It's about structure. And here's something powerful to remember. Accountability doesn't have to feel heavy. It can feel light, empowering, even fun. Find someone who uplifts you. Join a space where people share progress. Create a playful reward for checking off your goals. You don't need a drill sergeant. You need a partner, a mirror, a rhythm. And if you've tried accountability before and it didn't work, ask yourself, was it too rigid? Too perfectionistic? Too judgmental? Then create something new, something human, something flexible. One of my clients set up a weekly coffee check-in with a friend. Every Friday, they'd meet for 10 minutes and ask 2 questions. What went well this week? What's one thing you want to try next week? No pressure, just reflection, encouragement, and momentum. And it worked. They both stayed more focused, not because they were afraid to fail, but because they felt supported in trying. So here's your challenge after this video. Choose one layer of accountability to add this week. Maybe it's texting a friend with your daily goal. Maybe it's printing a habit tracker and marking your actions. Maybe it's changing your environment, removing distractions, setting up cues, or scheduling blocks of focus time. Whatever it is, make it simple, make it visible, make it supportive. You are not lazy. You're not undisciplined. You just need a system that helps you stay connected to your intentions, even on the hard days. And that's what accountability really is: connection. To yourself, to others, to your future. In the next video, we'll explore how planning can become not just simpler, but actually enjoyable. Yes, really. But for now, ask yourself, who or what will help me follow through this week? And how can I make showing up just a little easier? Let's talk about planning, and more specifically, how to make planning something that actually works for you, instead of something that overwhelms you or collects digital dust on your calendar. Because for many people, planning feels like pressure. It feels rigid, complicated, like something you should be doing but never quite stick to. Maybe you've downloaded planners, watched productivity videos, or created beautiful to-do lists, only to abandon them a few days later. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. The problem isn't you. The problem is how most of us have learned to plan. We've been taught that planning means having every hour of your day accounted for, that it needs to be perfect, color-coded, optimized, that it's about doing more in less time. But here's the truth. Planning isn't about control. It's about clarity. And when done right, planning can feel empowering, grounding, even fun. So let's strip it back to the basics. Planning is simply deciding in advance what matters and making gentle space for it. That's it. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to take hours. It just needs to help you focus your energy in a way that feels supportive. Let me introduce you to a version of planning that I call the Gentle Planner. It's a simple, 3-step process you can do in under 10 minutes, once a week, or even just once a day. And it works because it's designed to match real life, not your fantasy of perfect productivity. Step 1 is called Focus First. Before you even open your calendar, ask yourself, what actually matters this week? This could be one project, one habit, or one area of life that needs more of your energy. Maybe it's a deadline. Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's reconnecting with someone. Don't make a giant list. Just identify 1 to 3 priorities. These are your anchors, your compass for the week. If you only focused on these, the week would still feel successful. That's what you write down first. Step 2 is map the rhythm. This means creating a loose shape for your week or day, not hour by hour, but block by block. For example, mornings equals deep focus. Midday equals admin tasks. Afternoons equals meetings or movement. Evenings equals recovery. You're not scheduling every minute. You're giving your brain a rhythm it can relax into. A gentle structure that reduces decision fatigue and increases clarity. Think of it like a flexible container. Enough form to guide you, enough space to breathe. Step 3 is called Highlight and Protect. This is where you choose your daily highlight, the one thing each day that deserves your best focus. It could be a task, a conversation, a creative session, or even a break. Just one thing. Once chosen, you protect it. You create a boundary around it. Maybe that means turning off notifications, blocking the time in your calendar, or moving to a quiet space. Why just one? Because trying to do 5 most important things guarantees that none of them truly get your full attention. But one is doable. 1 creates focus. 1 creates progress. And here's the best part. When that one thing is done, your brain feels accomplished. You've won the day. Everything else is a bonus. Now, let's talk about making this sustainable. Most people drop their planning routines because they feel too formal, too complicated, or too disconnected from reality. So here's how you keep it light and real. First, use tools you actually enjoy. If you like notebooks, use paper. If you prefer apps, pick one that feels intuitive, not overwhelming. This is not about the perfect system. It's about the one you'll return to. Second, let your planning time feel pleasant. Light a candle. Put on music. Make it a ritual. Planning isn't a punishment, it's self-support. Third, include space for rest, not just effort. Don't cram every minute with tasks. Leave margin. Life happens. Energy fluctuates. Your plan should reflect that. And finally, review gently. Once a week, take 5 minutes to look back. What worked? What didn't? What do you want to keep or change? This builds self-awareness. And self-awareness builds better plans because they're based on you, not on someone else's ideal. Let me give you an example. One of my clients used to dread Sunday nights because she associated planning with pressure. But when we shifted her routine to a 10-minute check-in with coffee and soft music, something changed. She started looking forward to it. It became a moment of peace and intention. She'd ask, "What matters this week?" She'd block out 1 hour of focus time each day. And she gave herself permission to adjust the plan daily based on how she felt. Her productivity didn't just improve, her stress dropped. She stopped fighting time and started working with it. That's what I want for you. So here's your challenge after this video. Try the Gentle Planner method. Start with 3 steps. 1. Identify 1 to 3 weekly priorities. 2. Create a light rhythm for your days. 3. Choose and protect 1 highlight per day. Do it once a week, or even just for tomorrow. Make it easy. Make it kind. Make it something you'll look forward to. And if you miss a day or a week, no problem. Just begin again. Your plan isn't a contract. It's a conversation. Between you and your time. Between you and your energy. between you and your future. In the next module, we'll explore how to turn everything you've built so far into sustainable long-term change without burnout, pressure, or perfectionism. But for now, remember, planning isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what matters, with clarity, with rhythm, and yes, with a little joy. Let's keep going. Let's take a moment to be really honest. No matter how motivated or committed you are right now, there will come a time when you fall off track. It happens to all of us. That moment when life gets chaotic, when you're tired or overwhelmed, or when old habits start creeping back in. Suddenly, you find yourself disconnected from the progress you were making. You stop doing what was working. You freeze. You slip. And in that moment, what matters most isn't the slip itself. It's what you make that slip mean. If your inner voice starts telling you, I've messed it all up, or I'll never be consistent, or this always happens, then the small slip turns into a downward spiral. That spiral can become your story if you're not careful. This is why you need what I call your emergency toolkit. Not a set of rules or punishments, but a group of gentle mental tools to catch you in that exact moment, to pause the spiral, reset your mindset, and help you begin again without shame or guilt. The kind of tools that remind you, this is part of the process, not the end of it. Let's begin with the first tool, a sentence. One powerful sentence that changes everything. Falling off track is part of the process. Say it aloud if you can. It's not failure. It's not weakness. It's a natural part of real, long-term change. The messiness, the setbacks, the resistance, they're not signs that you're broken. They're signs that you're building something. And like anything worth building, it won't always be neat or easy. What matters is that you keep showing up, especially after you've fallen. That's where the next part of your toolkit comes in. Something small, something simple, something that shifts you gently from being stuck to being back in motion. I call it your reset ritual. It doesn't need to be impressive or perfect. It just needs to move you out of the freeze. Maybe it's closing your eyes and breathing for 30 seconds. Maybe it's opening your journal and writing a single sentence. Maybe it's standing up, stretching your arms, and saying quietly to yourself, okay, I'm ready again. The ritual isn't about catching up. It's about reconnecting with your intention, your strength, and your forward motion. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful shifts of all. When you've fallen off track, your brain wants to make everything feel overwhelming. You might think you have to catch up on all the things you missed or make a big dramatic change to recover. But that's not the way out. The way out is this: shrink the win. Make the next action so small it's impossible to resist. One breath, one sentence, one checklist item. You're not aiming to finish the marathon, you're just lacing up your shoes. And that tiny step creates momentum. When your brain is in avoidance mode, a massive to-do list is the enemy. But a single step? That feels possible. That feels safe. That feels like the beginning of something new. And that's exactly what it is. This leads us to the mindset shift that ties it all together. Instead of saying, I have to start over, what if you said, I'm already in motion again? The words we use shape the reality we live in. If you repeat, I'm stuck, then stuck is how you'll feel. But if you whisper, I'm moving again, even when your progress is small, your mind begins to believe it and momentum builds from there. Here's something important to remember. You're never really back at zero. Every insight you've gained, every tool you've learned, every past moment of progress, it all counts. Nothing is erased. It's still there, part of you, ready to be activated again. And when your mind starts doubting that, when it tells you that you always give up, or you're not disciplined, or you can't change, that's when the next tool becomes essential. I call it proof collection. It's the act of reminding yourself of who you already are and what you've already done. Even if your inner critic tries to erase that, you can bring it back. Take a minute and name just 3 things you've followed through on recently. 3 times you kept going. 3 moments you made a choice aligned with your growth. These reminders help rewire your belief in yourself. They ground you in truth, not self-judgment. And now, perhaps the most important piece of the toolkit, the one that holds it all together, self-compassion. The gentle voice that reminds you, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are human. And being human means you'll have dips in energy, moments of doubt, stretches where motivation disappears. That doesn't make you a failure. It makes you real. And real progress isn't linear. It's messy, irregular, and sometimes frustrating. But it's still progress. This process wherein it doesn't require perfection. It requires return. It asks that you come back to your path again and again with a little more kindness each time. So now, take a deep breath. Look at how far you've come. You've built a new awareness. You've gathered tools. You've proven that you can shift, that you can move, that you can return. And if you need to hear it again, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. When the next hard moment comes, and you'll be ready. You'll have your words. You'll have your ritual. You'll take a tiny step. You'll shift your mindset. You'll remind yourself of your strength. And you'll meet yourself with compassion. You don't need to use every tool every time. Sometimes one will be enough. Other times you'll lean on a few. But simply knowing that you have them, that there's a plan for when things get hard, that changes everything. Because success isn't built in the moments when everything flows perfectly. Success is built in how you respond when it doesn't. So the next time you fall off track, pause, breathe, use what you've learned, begin again. Not because you have to, but because you can. You've already proven that you're capable. And the fact that you're watching this video right now means you haven't given up. You're still in it. You're still becoming. Before we wrap up, I want you to say one thing out loud. Yes, even if it feels silly. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to return. And you just did. Let's keep going. In this video, I want to share something personal. It's a practice I've done for years, one that helps me stay grounded, focused, and clear even when life feels chaotic or uncertain. It's simple. It doesn't take much time, but it has changed the way I approach my days. I call it my daily motivation check-in. Now, don't worry, this isn't about hyping yourself up or trying to force energy that isn't there. This isn't some performance of positivity or productivity. It's much more real than that. This is about connecting to your own sense of direction, your own reasons for showing up. It's about pausing for a few quiet moments to listen to yourself before the noise of the day takes over. The truth is, most people don't fall off track because they're not capable. They fall off track because they've lost connection to their goals, their purpose, their identity. They forget why they started because they get pulled into reacting, rushing, checking boxes, or putting out fires. This check-in helps prevent that disconnection. It's not a to-do. It's a reset. A way to center yourself and set an emotional tone before your day begins. I do this every morning. You can do it however it fits into your life. All you need is a few quiet minutes, maybe a notebook, maybe just your thoughts, and the willingness to check in with yourself before checking in with the world. The practice centers around 3 simple questions, not because they're magical, but because they work. They create clarity, they create momentum, and they help me stay aligned with who I want to be. The first question is about how you want to feel, not how you think you should feel or how others expect you to feel, but how you want to feel. Maybe it's calm, maybe it's focused, energized, patient, open. There's no right answer. It's about emotional direction. It's about saying, this is the experience I want to invite into my day. When you name how you want to feel, you begin the day with intention instead of reactivity. You stop drifting and start choosing. That changes everything. The second question is more action-based, but still rooted in alignment. What's one thing I can do today that moves me closer to who I want to become? This isn't about being productive for the sake of being productive. It's about choosing something that reflects your identity. A habit, a decision, a choice that honors your growth. Maybe it's starting a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's turning off your phone for an hour. Maybe it's speaking up for yourself. You're not aiming to impress anyone. You're aligning with who you are becoming. And then comes the third question, the one I personally find the most powerful. What do I want to remember today? This could be a phrase, a truth, a quote, or simply a feeling. It could be something you've been telling yourself lately, something you want to anchor into more deeply, or something you need to hear again. Maybe it's, I'm allowed to take my time, or progress over perfection, or this is who I am now. Whatever it is, this becomes your quiet guide throughout the day. It becomes the sentence you come back to when you feel distracted, discouraged, or overwhelmed. These three questions, how do I want to feel, what's one thing I can do, and what do I want to remember, have created a steady rhythm in my life. They take less than 3 minutes to answer, and they set the emotional tone for everything that follows. Most people begin their day with other people's voices, notifications, emails, the news, social media. This check-in is your chance to begin with your own voice. It's a moment of self-leadership, a way to remind yourself that you have a say in how your day unfolds. And this isn't something that has to be rigid. There's no need for a perfect journaling routine or a special app. Sometimes I write my answers. Sometimes I speak them aloud while brushing my teeth. Sometimes I just think about them while pouring my first cup of coffee. The point is not to do it perfectly. The point is to do it consistently enough that it becomes part of your rhythm. There have been many moments in my life when I felt disconnected from my own goals. I had the vision. I had the drive. But somehow, in the day-to-day busyness, I would lose the thread. This practice helped me find my way back. It helped me pause and choose. It helped me remember that I'm allowed to steer the direction of my own experience, not through force, but through presence. I want to invite you to try this tomorrow, or maybe today, just once. Find a quiet moment. Ask yourself the 3 questions. Write them down if you want to. Speak them if you prefer. Let the answers be whatever they are. Don't try to sound wise or perfect. Just be honest. That honesty becomes your compass. And if you forget to do it one day, or a whole week goes by, that's okay. You don't need to be perfect to benefit from this. You just need to return to it when you're ready. That's the beauty of a practice. It waits for you. No pressure. No shame. Let me share what this might look like in real life. How do I want to feel today? I want to feel grounded and clear. What's one thing I can do? I'll block off 30 minutes for uninterrupted work before checking my phone. What do I want to remember? I don't need to rush. I'm allowed to move with intention. Another day it might look like this. I want to feel connected. I'll call a friend I've been meaning to reach out to, and I'll remind myself that connection builds energy. These answers shape my choices, my energy, my pace. They help me remember that I don't have to chase motivation. I just need to keep reconnecting with it, through intention, through clarity, through small, daily check-ins like this one. So before we move into the final video of this course, I want you to pause and try it for yourself. Even now, if you're in the right headspace, ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? What's one thing I can do to align with that? And what do I want to carry with me throughout this day? You've already done so much. You've learned, you've practiced, and now you're ready to integrate. That's the real work. And this check-in is one of the gentlest, most effective ways to do it. Let's keep going. Take a moment right now and pause, just for a second, wherever you are. Let yourself take a breath, not just a physical one, but an emotional one too. Because you made it. You didn't just finish a course. You showed up for yourself. You decided to face a pattern that's been holding you back and to look at it with honesty, curiosity, and courage. You invested your energy, your attention, your time into breaking old cycles and creating new ones. That's not a small thing. That's something to be proud of. What you've done here is growth. Real growth. The kind that comes not from perfection, but from persistence. From the choice to keep showing up, even on messy days. From the decision to continue, even after falling off track. And if you've done that even just once during this course, you've already created something new. A new pattern. A new story. A new level of trust in yourself. You've learned that procrastination isn't about being lazy. It's about how we respond to discomfort, uncertainty, and emotion. And more importantly, you've learned that you're not powerless in the face of it. You now have the tools to change your response. You know how to lower the barrier to starting. You know how to shift your mindset in under 2 minutes. You've practiced micro goals, daily check-ins, and rituals that don't rely on motivation, but build momentum gently, steadily, consistently. You've rebuilt your relationship with time, with your focus, with your energy. You've learned how to catch yourself when you fall, how to design an environment that supports your progress, and how to move forward without needing everything to be perfect. And maybe most important of all, you've begun to believe that you can trust yourself again, that you can take action even when it's hard, that you can return even when you've drifted. What you've done here wasn't just about learning techniques. This was transformation, moment by moment. You've built clarity. You've built awareness. You've built self-leadership. And that kind of change doesn't end with a certificate or a checkbox. So now what? Now you take what you've learned and live it. You don't have to make some huge dramatic shift. You don't have to be in full control all the time. You don't have to wake up every day full of energy and motivation. You just need to keep showing up for yourself. You need to keep returning when things are smooth and when they're not. Some days you'll remember your rituals. Some days you'll forget. Some days you'll take big action. Other days, all you'll manage is a breath and a pause. That's okay, because the power is in the return. You have a starting ritual now. You have your 2-minute tools. You have your emergency mindset reset. You have your morning check-in. You know how to shrink the win. You know how to move without pressure, how to come back without shame, how to build consistency without burnout. You've gathered the proof. You've seen what you're capable of. You've taken action. You've reflected. You've grown. So don't let your old story creep back in. You're not someone who always gives up. You're someone who is learning how to stay with yourself, with your vision, with your effort. This isn't about being productive every single day. It's not about achieving everything at once. It's about choosing your next step with clarity and care, and then taking it even if it's a small one, especially if it's a small one. So here's what I want you to carry with you after this course. You've got this. You really do. You're allowed to go slow. You're allowed to begin again. You're allowed to feel uncertain and still take action. You're allowed to feel proud of yourself, not because you finished the course, but because you committed to your own progress. This isn't the end of something. This is the beginning of a new chapter. One where you don't wait for motivation to magically appear. One where you create clarity and momentum on purpose. One where your next step doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. I hope that when life gets messy, and it will, you remember the tools you've built. I hope you come back to your check-ins, your mindset resets, your rituals. I hope you remember that small steps matter, that starting again matters, that progress is built on return, not perfection. And most of all, I hope you remember you're not alone. So many of us are on this path, learning to show up differently, to be more compassionate with ourselves, to take action even when it's imperfect. If you ever need to, come back to this course. Rewatch a video, redo a check-in, reset. This space will always be here, and so will your tools. Nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted. I'll leave you with one sentence that I hope becomes an anchor for you. Repeat it whenever you need it. My next action doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be mine. Whatever your next step is, go take it. I'm cheering for you. Always. Let's keep going.